Alright, thanks for tuning in. Today's video, I'm going to show you how I make my bass jigs, and then I'm going to go out and catch a fish on it after the fact. So stay tuned towards the end of the video for that. I'm going to go through it fairly quickly to try to keep the video from becoming too long. There's several different steps you have to go through to make a jig, and it can get quite lengthy. If you're interested in me doing this kind of thing in more detail, I'm considering making maybe a Patreon page or something where you go and you can sign up, and I can go through some of this stuff in a lot more detail. Just unfortunately, if you make videos for YouTube, you know that after the first 5 minutes, you lose about half your viewers. So the longer the video goes, the less people will watch. So I'm going to try to do it quick. A disclaimer is working with lead is dangerous. You don't want to breathe the fumes. You don't want to, you want to make sure you wash your hands afterwards. Don't pour lead in shorts, which I'm doing today. Definitely don't do it in bare feet or in sandals of some sort. You will get burnt. The lead, when it's hot, if you spill it, it will bounce. And it'll bounce a long distance, so be careful of that. Should wear gloves. You should probably wear a respirator. But anyway, stay tuned towards the end of the video. My plan is to make the jig and then go out and catch a fish on it. We'll see how that goes. But anyway, stay tuned. First off, I don't know how well this is showing up, but I have a little hot pot here. It just plugs in. This is what I like to use. My lead is heating up right now. I've got a couple different molds here. The first one is my bass jig mold. You can see I got my hook in here. I use a 2/0 fairly small jig hook. I don't like the big heavy jig hooks. They tear up your trailers. I like a light wire hook. That's just the way I do it. Your mileage may vary. But you'll notice in these molds there is a space for the weed guard, and it takes this little, almost looks like a nail, just a little pin that goes in. So as you can see, there's a little pin here that goes in the mold to how do I word it? So when you pour your lead, it's going to leave a hole for the weed guard. So anyway, there's that. So I like to put hopefully this is showing it, I like to put my mold on top of the hot pot to help heat it up. If your mold is hot, it's going to pour better. So my goal is to try to keep this from being too long of a video. But anyway, I will try to hold this up so you can see. When you melt your lead, you want to get this top layer of, I don't know what you want to call it, slag. It's just, you want your lead to be clean and shiny. So you see how that's nice and shiny. All right, I'm actually having problems with my camera, of course. But just to show you, I've got an old wheel weight here. And I'm gonna melt it down. Finding lead is not that easy nowadays. But anyway, as I was saying, hopefully that came through. Anytime you melt the lead, there's going to be impurities. You can see it smoking. It's not good to breathe it. You want to get that junk off the top layer. So your lead is, you want it nice and shiny and clean. I'm used to filming outside, so bear with me here. I don't, I'm going to heat up. And kind of as a bonus, I'm going to, since I've got my lead all heated up, I've got another mold here. I'm going to pour the jig heads that I use for my jig and fluke or my swim baits. I'm going to pour them at the same time. At least that's the plan. All right, so you see I overflowed it a little bit, not on purpose, but that happens. And I can't tell if my camera's pointed in the right direction or not. I'm not a professional filmer for this kind of thing, of course. As you can see, that pin is still in there. You got to pull that out. And you got the, and there you have it. There's a jig. And I just put that back in there to remelt it. Got to get another hook. I prefer mustad hooks. This is what the hook looks like before it goes in the mold. I think it's a 60-degree hook. One thing you need to be careful of when working with the lead is if you spill it, it will bounce like a little rubber ball and it will burn you. Ask me how I know. I'm trying to do this quickly so it doesn't turn into too long of an episode. You can see the overflow of the lead. It's dangerous, I'm telling you. You're probably better off. Yeah, that one turned out good. So again, I took out the excess, I just remelt. Got my pin out, and there's another jig. If you can see, the line tie is full of lead. I fix that later. And here's the jig head I use for swim baits and jig and fluke. Again, depending on how clean the lead you got, you may have to go back through and remove some of that stuff off the top. That's what it looks like. Now you can get molds for football jigs. I suggest you experiment with them, try to find what works for you. Like I said, there's a lot of guys on YouTube that are better at making jigs than me. Again, these are the jig heads I use for my swim baits, my jig and fluke. I use a Mustad 4/0 round bend jig hook in them. A lot better than store-bought, if you ask me. Only going to do a couple more here. Since I got my lead hot, I want to go ahead and stock up a little bit. All right, I'm going to pick my camera up. So I know you got, boy, that's hot. That is hot. So I put the pin in the mold like that. Trying to do this one-handed. And then I'm going to get another hook for my jig heads here. And And then I gotta set this back up over here. Hopefully it's pointing in the right direction, and I'm ready to pour. All right, so that's the first part of the process. It's a rather lengthy process, so I'm gonna pour some more just so I can stock up on them, and then I'm gonna come back to you with the next step. Stay tuned. And I know I'm gonna get someone asking, so I don't know if you can see it there, but that's the jig mold, model number, and everything that I use. It's a poison tail jig. I don't have my glasses on. It's model number PTJ-3-AFS. I don't know if I'll include this or not, but you see I've unplugged my lead. I'm letting it cool down. Probably best to get that paper plate away from it. But you want your elements covered with lead while you store it, otherwise they will rust. I learned that from my dad. So the next step I do anyways, I clean out the line tie. And these are actual dentist's tools, dentist picks. And they're great for cleaning out you want to be able to get your line tie, your line in there and tie it off easily. I also have this handy little set of tiny little files. Comes in really handy for just cleaning it up. You're probably going to have to repeat the process after you paint it, just so you know. And one of the many dangers for me working with sharp things is that's what happens. But that is, that's just going to make the fish bite better. Almost ready for the next step. I use a little propane torch because what you have to do is reheat the jig. And an important step is you got to make sure the pin is back in it. So that pin has to be back in there, otherwise your hole for the weed guard will fill up with paint, which you don't want. So don't heat it too much, that lead will melt and you gotta start all over. And there you have it. So I use ProTech powdered paints. Again, I'm not sponsored by anybody. There's a million different kinds you can use. This is just what I use. It's easily available. And the heads are all green pumpkin. That's what I'm using. I always say black and blue jig, and that is the best color if you ask me. However, I almost always use green pumpkin on my heads, and I'll make the skirts different colors. I like the contrast between a different colored head and a different colored jig body. That's just me. Again, your mileage may vary. Experiment with it. I've managed to stop the bleeding. Anyway, stay tuned. Just showing you what I use to hang my jigs. It's just a little aluminum little baking, I don't know what you call them, loaf dishes or whatever. They're disposable, and I just cut a piece of wire to fit across the top, and that's what I hang my jigs on. The next step is to bake these jigs. I'm going to bake them for 20 minutes at 350. It hardens that paint and makes a big difference as far as how long that paint's going to stay on the jig head. Again, there's a lot of different ways of doing it. My way's not the best way, but my way will catch fish. Some guys spend a lot of time trying to make their jigs perfect and beautiful. If you've ever seen a crawdad, which is what the jig is supposed to mimic, they're not beautiful and they're not perfect, so I don't worry that much about it. All right, the next part of the process, right now I'm baking those jigs. They're just in my oven. I don't know if that's good for me when I cook something else in my oven, having that lead, in there. I don't know. But next, we're going to attach the weed guards. You can buy the weed guards. I got these from Jan's Netcraft. You can get a lot of different colors. These are just green pumpkin. But I use a two-part epoxy. It's a marine epoxy. You can get it at a hardware store will have it. So anyway, a two-part epoxy, you mix it together. But what you want to do, I usually use a Q-tip and cut off the puffy part. Just use the stick. Get some of the two-part epoxy that's been mixed together. Dab it in the hole, and then you just stick your weed guard in the hole like that and just let them set up. I let them set up overnight. It doesn't take that long, an hour or so. All right, so once you get your weed guard attached, it's going to look like that. Now, you can either buy your skirt material in bulk, which comes looking just pretty much like that. You clip off the ends and you tie it, which I do from time to time. But I don't have a whole lot of free time these days, so I'll just buy skirts pre-made. They come with a little rubber band doohickey on them. If you can see it, there's a little rubber band with two little handle-looking thingies. And this is just how I do it. Again, a lot of guys who tie jigs are going to be gasping, but these work fine. You've seen me catch fish with them. And you basically just, you want to kind of thread it upside down. You want the bulk to flow out, if that makes any sense. So there's a short side and there's a long side. You want the long side to go in kind of backwards, if that makes any sense. And here it is, me with sharp things again. I'll probably end up bleeding. I don't have my glasses on either, so bear with me. So just thread it on. You want to get it over your trailer holder thingy, whatever you want to call it. And as you can see, this jig head here, or this skirt is, what's going on here? Got some blue in it, got some green pumpkin, got some black. I'm gonna catch fish with that one. That's a good looking jig. So that's what it looks like. Stay tuned. Again, I went through this pretty quick just to try to keep the video a manageable length. But I'm gonna go out and catch a fish with this jig here. So stay tuned. All right, thanks for tuning in. So I'm going to be targeting largemouth again today. The water temperatures have dropped 2 or 3 degrees. I've got 82 degrees on my front graph. The fish should be starting to feed up. I think we're kind of starting the fall feeding period. I'm going to be throwing the jig because it doesn't let me down. Oh boy, it's a giant. Look at the size of that giant largemouth. I guess I need to weigh that one. £5 pounds 9 ounces, or 5.09, whatever that is. It's a nice one. Big old largemouth. .09. All right, thanks for watching. I love it when it works out like that. I was worried I wasn't going to be able, you know, you never know when you're going to run into a day where you just can't catch a fish. I was worried I was going to go through all that process, making a jig, and then go out and blank, you know. But luckily I caught a doozy. So that's what a jig will do for you. They just catch bigger fish. But anyway, thanks for watching. Give it a thumbs up. Make sure you're subscribed if you like this kind of content. And I will see you next time.